This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Pei Vav. No, the learning for this month. The month of Elul has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf. As Aschos Alias Neshama for Aster Rizal Basra Meir. V'siyata Dishmaya, the learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aster Rizal Basra Meir to an elevated place in Gan Eden Shamayla, closer to the Kisei HaKavod. We're holding on Pei Vav Amar Aleph. And we got about 10 lines down. The first one, the line is B'misachli Ditumi. As the Gemara now continues, Amli Ravuna, Amli Huna, Breidimar Zucha Ravina, as we're going to delve into the second half of an above Brisa. This is going to be continuing the discussion of having a kinyan on what level, I should say. You could have a kinyan within a keli and someone else's rishos. So Amar Lehuna Breidim Arzuchel Ravina Mechti. Let's see. Pirkan Katani. What did the Brisa say? The Brisa said in the second case that he unloaded the items into the property of the Lokeach, the buyer. Says the Gemara, if that is true, that the items that are being purchased were placed in his property, Mali Pasak, Mali Loi Pasak. Says the Gemara, so what is the difference if there was a price, if there was not a price? Lamaisa, the items, whatever he's buying, the apples, the pears, the computers, whatever the item is in the possession of the Lokeach. So even if it was Loi Pasak, even if there was no price set, the purchaser should have a kinyan. Amar Le, Ravina responds back to Marbar Ravashi, Pasak Somcha Daite. Loi Pasak, Loi Somcha Daite. He says, Ravina, Lamaisa, there is no Smichas Das. He doesn't actually think that the sale is going to go through. It's true the item is sitting in his property, but he's nervous that the seller might end up asking for an exorbitant price, thereby negating the sale, and therefore there is no kinyan. Really, interestingly enough, from the vantage point of the buyer, even though the items are in his rishos, but because the price has not been set, and he is nervous and concerned, what's he going to charge? Therefore, there is no kinyan. That really just wraps up the brisa. Amarle Ravina the Ravashi Tashema, trying to bring one more raya about having a kinyan with one's item and someone else's rishos. Diravu Shmuel Damri Tervayu Kalev Shaladam Kainale B'chol Makim. Says Ravina to Ravashi, Rav and Shmuel are of the opinion one's utensils are able to be a kinyan for him wherever he is. Lasuye Mai. What does it come to say when he says b'chol makam? What is that coming to include? Lav la'asuye rishos meicher. So suggesting Gemara, you know what it's coming to say? It's coming to say that my item in your rishos, again, my cup in your rishos, if you put something inside of it, my cup could affect a kinyan. So seemingly the point that Rav and Shmuel said b'chol makam is coming to include that. Says the Gemara, Hasam Darmali Zilkini. Over there, they're talking about a case where the Meicher, the seller, said, go and acquire with your item. So in that case, of course, it's going to work. Our original shaila is if the seller did not say Lechu Kini, seller's just selling the item, and the buyer wants to effect the kinyan by putting it in his kelim, would that work? And to that, says the Gemara, we do not have a raya. So we leave it off. We don't have a raya, whether Kalev Shalokeach or Shazmaicher could be a kinyan. And now we segue into a new topic, Tanan Hasam, moving on to the kinyan of Meshicha. We're smack in the middle of the Amid. First word on line is Nechasim. Tanan Hasam, Nechasim, Shisha Machrais, take them because of Mishtar B'chazaka. She'in the Machrais, hopefully it's a price that sounds familiar. We had this numerous times. And items without a chayes, most notably metaltal and movable items, ein niknin ella b'mashicha, through pulling the items. Says the Brisa further, Besura Masla Shemaitza, Mishmei Rav Chisda. Surah, they said Rav Chisda was the Baal Memra, was one that said over this Brisa. But Bavadisa Masla Mishmei, the Rav Kahana, V'amrla Mishmei, the Rava. Son said in the name of Rava. Now, what is this teaching that they're not sure all the different Amarayim that might have said it? That what? Lo Yishanu al Dvarim Shein Darkan Lagviyah. That when are we saying that on Tavarim she'ein lahem achrayis? When are we saying that on Metaltzlin you're kind of in Meshicha by pulling the item? Is specifically items that it's not the derech lehagbiyah to lift up those items. Aval, however, dvarim shedarkin lahagbiyah, an item which is small, and therefore the normal way of making the kinyan on such an item is indeed by picking it up. Says the Gemara, b'hagbahain, by picking it up you have a kinyan b'mashicha lai, but there'd be no kinyan by mashicha. So comes on the Gemara, and the Gemara is mechadesh, and the chasim she'ein lahem achrayis, movable items, are kind of b'mashicha. But explains the Gemara, that's not everything. That's a heavy item that you don't normally pick up. So what do you do with it? That item you could do Meshicha with. But says the Gemara, an item that is light, you have to do Hagbah and not Meshicha. Ask the Gemara, Yosef Abaye v'Karmelo Shemaitza. Abaye was sitting and saying over this din. Eisi Rav Ada Ramasta Abaye. Rav Ada Ramasta asked for the following brisa. Hagoynev kis b'Shabbos chayiv. Someone steals a wallet on Shabbos, he's chayiv. Why? Shekvar is chayiv v'gneva. Koydem shavel de'isur Shabbos. Because you're chayiv and gneva before you come to Isur Shabbos. So this brisa is discussing the halacha of Kim Lei b'dirabah minei, that any time you have a higher level of einesh, any time you have a severe punishment, you don't get the lesser punishment. So of course for Chilul Shabbos, one is chayiv skila, the death penalty. So anytime you're going to be chayiv skila, you're never going to also be chayiv monetary payments. So why here does the Brisa say Agoynev kis b'Shabbos, you are indeed chayiv? So explains the Brisa, you know why? Because the Chiyav Geneva came before the Isser Shabbos. It is not a scenario of Kimlei B'diramine. It is not a scenario of two things happening simultaneously. Why? For the simple reason that the Geneva comes first. How is it possible that he's first over on stealing and only subsequently is he chayiv on the Meleches Shabbos, which we'll see is going to be carrying? Explains the Brisa that's only in that scenario, which we'll see what it is. But if, from the contrast, we'll see clearly, if he's dragging the item and pulling it out of the Rishos, Potter. If he's Megarer v'yoyse, then he's going to be Potter. Why he's going to be Potter if he's dragging the wallet out of the Rishos? Shari Isser Shabbos Ugneva Ba'in Kechad. Because then the moment that it comes out of his Rishos is the same moment simultaneously that he is over the Chi of Shabbos, and therefore they're buying Kechad. Therefore there's no Chi. So if I go and I pick up your wallet, then I did a kinyan hagbah. I was over in Geneva, and when am I chayiv Meleches Shabbos? When I take it out of your rishos, they don't come at the same time. Everything is good and dandy. But ask the Gemara. But if you're dragging the wallet out, then the two of them come simultaneously, because you're not chayiv on Geneva until you bring it out of his rishos because you didn't pick it up. You're not chayiv on Shabbos until you bring it out of his rishos because that's when you're over in the melacha of bringing from one rishos to the next. But says the Gemara, wait, we're talking about a wallet. So you normally pick up. And yet, what do we see? Can have a kinyan with Mashicha. So Amar Le, 7 lines on the white lines, B'misna, talking about a case where you drag the wallet by its straps, its string, and such a way of carrying that is indeed normal. Ananami b'mista kamina. Says Rav Master, what do you mean? Even if you drag it by its straps, it's still an item that you normally pick up. So Amrli responded, no, we're talking about an item that needs the straps. A large wallet, we'll call it more a bag. And that's the reason why you're chayiv by dragging it. Tashema, Sigmar further again, another kasha on this concept that Meshicha is only for heavy items, but items that are normally lifted, you cannot do Meshicha on them, rather you have to Agba. 3 lines on the white line says the Brisa, B'Shos Meicher. Says the Brisa, quoting a Brisa we saw yesterday, that if there is a sale, B'Shos Meicher, and the possession of the Meicher, like Kana until what? Achi Agbianu, or Achi Yotzenim Reshusai. So you pick it up or you bring it out of your shos. Alma, what do you see? Says Gemara, Midvar Agba. It's an item that you can lift, and yet it says, Ibai Hagba Kanile, Ibai Meshicha Kanile. The price seems clear that you could have the kinyan either with Hagba or with Meshicha. So Amram Nachma Yitzchak, Litzdadim Katani. Says Rav Yaakov Yitzchak, no, the brisa, when it says Hagba and it says Meshicha, Litzdadim, each one in their respective cases. Midvar Hagba, Hagba, Midvar Meshicha, Meshicha. But it doesn't mean that the same item you're able to do Hagba and Meshicha on, and therefore it's not a kasha on our original memra. We turn over to Peivav and Beis, continues the Gemara, trying to ask another kasha from our Mishnah. If you sell fruit to your friend, said the Mishnah, if you do a Meshicha, if you pull the item, and you didn't measure out the item, you have a kinyan. Asks the Gemara of a Paris de Bnei Hagbahaninu. But 1 second, Peiros are an item that you normally pick it up. And yet the Mishnah said what? You're kind of with Meshicha. And so talking about a large bundle of produce which you can't normally Shalfi Ravravi, you can normally pick up. Ask the Gemara, Yachi, 1 second, 4 lines down. Continue the Mishnah that said that if you buy flax from your friend, you don't have a kidney until you bring it from one place to the next. Are pishta normally an item that you put into large bundles? So therefore, why can you have the same kinyan of Meshicha? Excuse me, Pishtan, also you put in large bundles, so you have the same kinyan of Meshicha. Says Gar Milay Avdi. Answers Marshani Pishtan did Mishtamate. Pishtan slips out, and therefore they don't normally bundle it too big because it would all fall apart. Therefore, Davka, they would make it into small bundles. That's the reason why the Mishnah said you have to move it me'makim le'makim. And one last kasha again on this idea that you cannot do Meshicha on small items that you normally pick up, but rather you have to Agba Amar Ravina Ravashi Tashema. 10 lines down, the first line is Tashema. Going back to our Baba Kama days and our Kedushin days. A large animal, you're kind of a Mesir by giving over the reins, Vadak, on a small animal, back Baba picking up the Meir. Shimon Elazar V'chama Madak, a small animal, B'Meshicha. The small animal you do by pulling it. Ask the Gemara, the obvious kasha, what do we see from this? V'behema daka is Dvar Hagbahi, is an item that you do normally indeed lift up, and you have a Katani Dekani Meshicha. It says that there's a kinyan with Meshicha. Says the Gemara, Shani Behema Desarcha. Says the Gemara, no, Behema clings to the ground with his feet. It makes it difficult to lift it up. And therefore, even though you could lift it up, but it's considered an item that's not normally lifted up because the animal resists the lifting. And that is the reason why the Chachamim said you have to be kainet with Meshicha. Continues the Gemara leaves that memra. We've concluded seemingly that indeed a small item would have to be picked up and not done Meshicha to. Continues the Gemara, bringing us back to a sugya from yesterday, Ravu Shmuel Damar Tavayu. That if a seller says I'm selling you a core for 30 salayim, yachal lachzer boy afilu b'sela achreina, excuse me, then the seller can back out even as he's measuring out the last saw. You have 30 salayim for the core, even the last saw, the last little measurement, the seller could back out. Which means what we're saying is that the buyer doesn't have a kinyan until it's fully measured out to him. But until that last moment, the seller can back out. But if he says kor bishleishim sabisalani meichelacha rishain kind of says kor 430 slayim bisela, which means a saw for a sela, then he's selling it in smaller increments. Then rishain kind of there's a kinyan as he measures it out, and you can't back out. Based on this, din Tashma asked the Gemara, Maisamida shal echamehan rishain kain, and the Mishnah said, the Brisa said, excuse me, if the midah of the measuring cup belonged to one of them, the buyer or the seller, then there's a kinyan in each and every little bit. And even though the midah does not fall, so ask the Gemara, even though they didn't say they're selling it per saw, what do we see? We see there's a kinyan little by little. Answers the Gemara, we're talking about a case which he said, I'm selling you for 12 slayim, you should look for a sela. And Rav 3 lines to the bottom, there were measurements, there were markings on the hin, on the measuring cup. There are measurings on the marking cup which allows to be able to sell it piece by piece. And that's the reason why he will not indeed be able to back out. He will be able to back out. Actually, he will not be able to back out, and we consider that he's selling it piece by piece. One last brisa, Tashema, 2 lines to the bottom. Someone hires a worker, dinner. He wants to pay him a dinner per day, and he pays him prior. Okay, we don't have, let's stop over here. I don't have the next page in front of us. So let's stop over here by this Tashema, and we'll pick it up from here tomorrow. B'siyata Dishmaya.